Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this class. So, yeah, we'll be learning all the related technologies, as well as we'll learn from basics, as in why these technologies are required in the first place, and like what is the role of these technologies in this whole space of IT. So, yeah, before I do that, some basic rules for this class. So yeah, please always keep yourself on mute. Uh, yeah, so what I'll do is after every completing every concept, I'll pause and ask for questions. So whenever I'm like teaching some concept, try not to like interrupt in between and just wait for I shouldn't say ask questions only when asked rather ask questions at the end of the topic, right? So just wait till I complete explaining the concept, because a lot of times it will happen that whatever you're going to ask, it will actually get answered in the maybe in the next minute. Okay. So yeah, just don't interrupt when I'm like teaching a topic. Just wait till I complete that particular topic. How do you identify a topic? Every line that I use on this notes file will be one topic. Okay. So uh, that's how you can like identify what is a topic, right? And don't feel shy to ask, right? So it's perfectly fine. Like students from different background are there in this forum. So some freshers are also there. So it's perfectly fine if you don't get a concept in the first go. Or don't feel shy. I've asked 2 times, but I'm still not getting it. So when you will force me, I'll also explain that concept in different ways, right? So it's perfectly fine. Okay, so keep it interactive. Don't feel shy. Uh, Avoid using chat, because when I'm teaching, my most of the time I'm not noticing the chat window. So it would be better if you just unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. Uh, so yeah, let's follow that protocol. Okay. And finally, don't call me sir. I'm still young. You can just call me Rahul. Okay. So those are the basic rules for the class. So what you'll learn. You'll learn the concepts of web technologies, how all these web apps or internet works. You'll learn the concepts of cloud computing, and you'll also learn what actual system design is about, and what is the practical system design. So again, there are two parts to system design. I'll talk later in the course. Whatever the development part of system design, that I'll not be covering, because this is not a development related course, right? In this course, you'll not be doing any actual development. Rather, it's more of a config related course where you'll be learning the concepts and like configuring or breaking down softwares in a way such that they become scalable. Okay. So course format. So the course format will be, there will be one theory class, as you know, during the free weekends, which is every Friday, which will be like 20%, actually, not even 30%, maybe 20% of the actual course content. The most of the learning will happen through the assignments and the lab sessions that you'll do. Okay, so this is the way actually they teach at IITs or at all the good universities all over the world. IITs, BITS, and ITs. This is the kind of format that they follow. That the professor will just give you the concepts in the class, but the actual lifting or actual learning will happen with the big assignments that they'll give you, right? So I'll follow the similar format in this course. This will be very different from any of the courses that you've done till now. Yeah, be prepared to do a lot of hard work, because this course, as I already mentioned, at least 10 hours per week commitment. So this will be a very hands-on course. You'll have to do a lot of hard work, and that's the reason that security fee concept is there. Because what I've seen in the past is that people who benefit most from these courses are the ones who were solving the assignments. So I wanted to force students to solve assignments. So yeah, security fee is one of the idea that I got across to force you guys to actually do the assignments. So that's why the security fee is there. Okay. So how to get the maximum out of this class? This is not just for this class, actually. This is for any computer science training that you are attending. Again, I don't know what is your level of understanding or education at this point of time. So it might happen that I might use some terms which you have not heard of, right? Or which might be new to you, or which I'll be using a lot of jargon throughout the course, right? It's okay if you pause me and ask, that is perfectly fine. But again, the class time is limited, and there might be so many things I might be telling about, right? So there might be so many new terms that you might be hearing about. So always keep a notepad, pen, paper, or whatever notepad in your laptop or mobile ready, and be vigilant to note down these terms when I'm teaching, right? So what you can do is, like, after the end of the class, then you can dig down on these terms. You can go to Wikipedia and you can actually search and read more about these. Uh, so always keep a notepad handy throughout the class, and maybe specifically have a column for these topics that you want to dig in further. Even during the class, I'll suggest a lot of topics to you to dig in further. So definitely have a notepad handy. Okay, so just get a notepad quickly if you don't have one. Okay, so that's how you can. That's the first step to get the maximum out of this class. Second is again, this course will not be a typical course that you see online. It's not a spoon feeding course. I won't be giving you everything um, into your mouth. That's very intentional, because I want you to dig and debug and learn. Because computer engineering in general, or computer science in general, is not about just programming. It's programming is just one of the skills, and I've been, like, telling you guys, a lot of, like, fresher students not to invest so much time on, like, lead code and all data structure stuff only, because the real skill is actually the problem decomposition and debugging, which you will actually learn in this course also. And this you learn only when you start doing stuff by yourself, right? So and you'll see, like, errors at every step when you start doing these assignments, or whatever work I'll give you. You'll get hammered at every point. You'll see a lot of unknown errors, uh, and that's how you learn debugging. So what you have to do is, you have to first learn how to debug, and that is one of the important skill I want to teach through this course. That you should learn how to debug when you see anything new, right? So how to put a fight on your own, right? That's what it is all about. Definitely. So when I was a fresher 10 years back, one key thing that I learned from my mentor was that whenever you are getting stuck, at least for 30 minutes, put up a fight by yourself, and then frame a question, and then reach out to someone. Okay. A lot of times it will happen that you will actually uh, search through various media, various sources online. Also, I should include Stack Overflow. Uh, and most of the time you'll get the answer if you do proper research. If you don't get, you can definitely ask people, right? And again, for asking question, always frame question properly. Lot of times it has happened with me when I have, like, written down the question to my mentor, wrote an email, or so my mentor used to do this. He used to say that, send me an email if you have stuck on anything, detail out everything, and send me a detailed email. And as part of the writing that email also, I realize some people might relate on the group also. When you are doing this, you sometimes relate, Arey, I haven't tried out this thing. Let me try this out. And when you try that out, that actually solves the problem. So it has happened with me. A lot of time it has happened that I've written the mail and then I figured out, Arey, this is something that I didn't try out. So writing that technical emails, or writing proper questions, detailed questions, is also very important. So if you are getting stuck, use the group also, whatever the group that we have, the uh, WhatsApp group. But don't ask half-baked questions. Give full context, so that the other person can understand what you are asking, right? Don't just say, this is, for me, this is not working. You have to give full context. What error you are seeing? What steps have you tried out? So I'll help you only when you tell me what all things have you tried out very clearly, and what is the exact issue that you're facing. Okay, half-baked questions, I'll again ask you, I'll return those questions. Okay, so this is all learning. This is not me. So this is a hard way to learn, but once you get into habit, your life in the industry will become very easy. And this is how everybody works. At least those who are successful work this way. Okay, so what are the sources? Now this is the new source. I don't know if you guys have started using ChatGPT or not, but this is the most powerful source right now. Even before Google, now I would say go and ask. on ChatGPT, right? I'll just show you a quick demo of ChatGPT. So you just log on to chat.openai.com. You can log in with your Google account. Sometimes you might get error that the service is not supported in your country. If that happens, you can use Opera web browser. Opera has a built-in VPN, so you can just use a Europe or US-based VPN. But for me, it's an intermittent issue that I see. Sometimes it works in India, and sometimes I get that error that country is not supported. So at least right now it is working. So I'll just give you a quick demo. So why should I learn cloud computing? So even all those questions that you have, even some doubts you have, now this is so powerful that it can actually answer your questions most of the time correctly. 90%, sometimes it gives some incorrect answers, but still it is like very useful. I can still ignore all those errors, right? So why should I learn cloud computing? High demand for cloud skills. Yeah, every organization is now moving from okay, I don't know if you guys can see my screen. Let me increase the font, right? So there is a high demand for cloud skill. Definitely, cloud is a very demanded skill right now in the market after AI. Even for AI, right? You need cloud, because all these AI workloads run on cloud, right? So there's Kubeflow, which is a very popular framework for running AI ML trainings and inference, which is used by most of the data science teams, right? So Kubeflow is again Kubernetes based, right? It's a framework which runs on top of Kubernetes. Similarly, other frameworks are also there. There are a lot of frameworks which run on top of Kubernetes or a cloud for AI. So all that AI stuff, whatever we are is going on, till the time AI will be there, demand for the underlying infrastructure will be there, and the demand for cloud skills will also be there, because somebody is needed to run and maintain all that infrastructure, right? So clouds savings, cost savings, definitely all the companies are now moving from on-prem to cloud due to the cost savings that are there in the cloud, because the same infrastructure is now shared by a lot of companies together in the cloud, right? So flexibility, scalability, increase productivity, innovation, all those stuff, it's fine, right? So this is how actually you use ChatGPT. I'll give more demos of ChatGPT maybe during the call. So whenever you get some error and you are not able to get around it, before asking on the forum, try using ChatGPT for that, right? So first of all, use ChatGPT, then use Google, then I think Google and Stack Overflow is kind of same, because a lot of times the answer that you'll get will be from Stack Overflow only. But always in Google, you can do Stack Overflow specific searches by saying site:/stackoverflow.com, right? So learn how to Google first of all. There are so many tutorials online. There are some like hacks like the site keyword in the Google search, right? Learn all those hacks, right? So that you are able to Google effectively, become a good Googler in the first place, right? And Wikipedia for learning the sources, the specific topics, right? So whatever topics you note down, you can always go to Wikipedia and search for those particular topics, right? So for example, later in the course, I'll ask you to learn about HTTP, right? So you just go search for wiki HTTP, and you'll get the Wikipedia link, right? And that's how basically you go through the individual articles on individual topics throughout the course, right? And again, yeah, so follow 30-minute rules, which I told, and then ask on group if it's stuck with detailed query. Okay, and finally, also use the recordings. All after every class, I'll be sharing the recording to a Dropbox folder. So whenever you are revising the course, so you can always use the recording to pause and go through the topic again. Okay. Any questions till this point? Okay.
Rahul, when this one hands-on will be happen?
Yeah. So you'll just go through the class. You'll understand the format. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So hands-on, what I mean by hands-on is the assignment part. Okay. So the
No,
assignment.
I'm asking like which day you will be conducting this
So
80%
yeah,
lab.
so see, the way this will work is at the end of the every class, I'll give you a reading and a lab assignment, and just to help you guys, there will be a 1 hour. You can say doubt solving class in the middle of the week. Okay. So that will be on Tuesday for this course. So every Tuesday, 8 to 9 p.m. We'll meet for an hour. But that is like more of a dedicated class. Otherwise, this WhatsApp group is open 24/7, right? So whenever you are working on the assignment, you are getting stuck, really stuck, and you are not able to solve it. When you are completely blocked, then you can use that group and post your query there. Okay.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Rob.
Sure. Okay, so the first question, this is a very basic question that I ask in interviews to test this is the question which you can use to like test the depth of understanding of any candidate. So who would like to answer these questions? So let's say, let me give you a scenario, right, for the question. So what happens when we hit google.com on browser? What happens behind the scene? I know what happens. If I say google.com, I'll see the search page for google.com. Like, what is going on behind the scenes in this process? Yeah, Harjit, go ahead. Sorry, yeah, Harry, go ahead.
Okay, so when we enter the URL for an application, so with that domain, there is a particular IP address associated. So the browser starts fetching data from the browser hits that IP address, and first
wait. So first, IP address kahan se aa gaya? So domain name has to get translated into IP address, right? First of all.
Yes.
So there's a DNS resolution that is the very first thing that happens. ठीक है, चलो DNS resolution हो गया. Now you got IP address. What next?
Yes. Then using that IP address, we try to make a connection with that server.
We कौन है?
And
Who is this?
browser. The client basically.
Right.
And then firstly the server sends us the index.html file. That is the first file that we get. And after that, we start communicating with that, the client starts communicating with that server. And in this way, we get this data.
Right. So request whatever browser sent, who answered that request?
The server answers that request.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else will like to add anything to this?
Yeah, yes, Rahul. Means on that particular IP address, on that particular machine, there must be some web servers running, which actually process that request receiving from the browser itself. And after processing that request, it send a response in the form of HTTP, and we see that content on the web browser.
Right. So I'll just keep noting down what you guys are telling, right? So somebody said the browser is there, which sends to web server, and they talk using HTTP. Yeah, more answers. I need more information.
So what happens is actually, first of all, when we type any URL before the domain name resolution, what happens? Our browser checks whether or not that domain name is actually present or not in our cache. If that domain name is present in our cache, then browser will fetch it from there. If not, then it will again do the domain name resolution and call for the respective IP address.
Good. Yeah, more whatever you guys want to add. It's a complicated process, so I'm sure you guys can add a lot more stuff. Feel free to add. Okay. Okay, anything else anybody wants to add, or should I proceed further? Okay, so So do you know, like web server, there's something after the web server also, right? Which will, this response that your browser is sending to Google server or Google's web server doesn't generate this response. So whatever response you guys got here, right? This whatever you see on this this HTML, right? This is not actually generated by the Google's web server. So can somebody tell me who generates this response? Okay, so I'll answer that question. So actually, there's another server or process called application server, where your actual application code will be running, right? So whatever language they've coded in Java, C, whatever. So there will be the application. There will be an application server in the corresponding language, where this request will be processed. Okay. So yeah, let's forget now the. So this was a good answer overall, whatever you guys gave. But let's understand the basics behind this, right? So even before going to internet application, let's talk a bit about internet, right? So what is internet? Internet is basically a collection of networks, right? So basically, if I show you the image of in Google of internet. So this is a good image. Right. So if you see, internet it is actually a collection of networks, right? There's a network which is within Africa, there's a network which is within Asia, and then there's a network which is running within US, right? And all these are connected through underground sea cables or through satellite links, right? So there are a lot of, you can say, LANs and WANs which are connected together and forming a internet or a single network all over the world, right? And every application that we use today, be it browser or be it mobile application or be it IoT applications. IoT is Internet of Things, which is like your refrigerator, basically smart refrigerator or smart TV. All these applications all over the world are talking to each other, right? Talking to some server and some client, right? So the communication and this, like everything is happening on the internet only, right? Though it might be public internet or some organizations might have their own private network. So that might be a private network or private internet, we can say, right? So, but you can see every application has this nature, right? Every application that we are running is some sort of a network application, right? And there's some sort of communication happening between the applications, right? Abhi, mujhe or let's say I want to talk to somebody in Africa, let's say, ठीक है ना? So we will need to have a common medium of communication, ठीक है? So maybe African guy will know his own local language, Swahili or whatever, and I'm Indian, so I'll know Hindi. But we need to have a common medium. So there's an international language which is sort of we assume that everybody all over the world should know that. Being a so English is now accepted as a general or accepted source of communication right now, right? So it's a kind of a common set of protocol, you can say. It's a common protocol all over the internet through which we communicate, right? So similarly, the way there is English, there is the concept of, so the way we have like languages in our world, in computer world, we have something called protocols, right? So yeah, this is one term that you should learn about. PROTOC protocols. Okay, right? So one most common protocol that you see everywhere is HTTPS, right? Or HTTP, which is usually used in the browsers that we use, right? Apart from this, there are more protocols. There's gRPC, right? Can somebody name more protocols? There's TCP, there's UDP,
SMTP.
SMTP, very good. For mails. Right? So So yeah, these are there, and then there are more bunch of others, right? So again, this is one key term that you should read about on Wikipedia. You should learn about all these protocols. Definitely, I would say most important among all these is HTTP. You should definitely, each and every like computer engineer should know everything about HTTP, all the common response codes, and all, right? So HTTP headers, HTTP protocol, everything you should know in detail, right? So this is like will be there in one of the reading assignments for today, that you should learn in detail about HTTP if you don't know already, right? So now, so first thing that we need is a language, right? Between any two processes, any two applications all over the world, if they want to communicate, they need a common language or common protocol, right? So most of the I think in this course we'll be mostly dealing with HTTP only. But yeah, for your knowledge, there are other kind of applications also, right? So and next thing comes the concept of server and client, right? We already heard that those terms. So let's try to understand server and client concept from a real world scenario. So let's say you go to McDonald's, right? So on McDonald's, when you go, there are few people standing who will be taking your orders, right? And then there will be a queue of clients who are actually giving their orders, right? An order takes some time to get prepared, right? So in a way, you can think of ki jo bhi log, whoever you guys are, everybody is approaching for service. Those are the clients, right? So basically, clients need a service, right? And server is somebody who's providing a service, right? So it's the exact same concept in computer science also, right? So all these browsers who want to get some service from google.com are web clients, right? These are clients, and you can say, since they are talking using HTTP, you can say these are HTTP clients. Okay, so again, examples of HTTP client can be any web browser, right? Or maybe I can also do a curl to Google, right, from my command line. So curl is again a tool in Linux. So this is Linux terminal that you see here. Let me increase the font, right? So I'll just add more also, so that the response doesn't overflow. Okay, so if you see, what I've done is basically I've sent a HTTP request to google.com. Same thing what my browser did. Same thing I'm doing through command line now, right? So in a way, this curl is also a HTTP client, right? So you can have curl, wget, or any mobile app, right? So, and let's go on, right? And then at the other end, the service provider, and you need to have somebody who again understands the same language. So it's a HTTP client, so it's talking in HTTP language, right? The way me and African guy were talking in English language, right? So similarly, at the server side, I need somebody who understands HTTP, right? Because we are talking in HTTP. So we need a HTTP server at the other end, right? So HTTP servers, there are a lot of common HTTP servers. There's most popular are Apache or Nginx, right? So these are softwares, open source softwares, built by Apache is built by Apache Foundation. Nginx, I don't know the company name. You can find out, and then there are more, right? So what can you guys name? What are other HTTP servers available? Apart Tomcat is not a HTTP server. It's a Java application server. There's a OHS. I don't remember the full form. But yeah, OHS is also a web server, which is used in front of WebLogic server or Tomcat server in the Java world. Okay, and then there might be many more, but yeah, these are the two popular ones. Okay, so this is the concept of HTTP server, right? And if you see here, whatever HTTP request I had sent to Google server now responded with a in the HTTP protocol, right? So first thing it sent in the packet or in the response was the protocol version HTTP 1.1, so that the other guy who's getting the response understands what bhasha I'm speaking, right? So it told you clearly first thing in the header in the first packet that it sent the protocol name, right? And then the status 200 means yeah, it's a valid response. served your request and it was processed successfully, right? So it's a success response code, right, in HTTP language. And then all those HTTP headers are there, and then the body is there, right? So this is the same thing that you see in the browser also, right? When I did that view page source, right? So if you see, if you want to compare, this is actually the same thing that you are getting in the client also, right? So computers actually don't uh, uh, they understand codes only, right? At the end of the day, they understand binary language only, right? So all that binary is getting converted. So at the lowest level, all these things, how they travel on the network, right? They travel as 0 and 1 only, right? In the binary format. And then they, from the binary, they get converted into hexadecimal or octadecimal. And from those character encodings, they get converted into language, right? Or into these characters, basically. And that's how these whole response is formed, right? So underlying at the very low level, it's all 0 and 1, but at a little higher level, it's all codes, right? And then browser understands by seeing this, all this code, how do I have to present it in this format, which is basically what is you are visualizing, right? So this rendering is again a function of browser. So browser, this web browser, Chrome browser that I'm using, is serving two functions. One, it is doing it is a HTTP client, so it knows how to talk in HTTP language, right? Or HTTP protocol. So that is one function. All that HTTP communication it does. And then, so the second function is rendering the response, right? Whatever HTTP code or whatever code response it got back from the server, is getting back from the server, it's rendering that in a beautiful visual way, right? So that is the other function of the browser. Okay. Okay, so coming back to where we were. So now you understand the concept of HTTP client server and how basically at a very high level internet works, right? But internet is more than this thing. If I ask you this question in interview, somebody might even go to the OSI layer level, right? He might even tell me further down ki HTTP, how does basically HTTP protocol gets broken down into TCP packets, and then how those TCP packets get converted into actual 0 1s at the physical layer, right? So if somebody goes till that depth in explaining all these things, he tells me about all these things, as well as he tells me about the entire OSI layer, maybe the function of every stack. Maybe he tells me about the routing also. Then I understand, yeah, he knows things end to end. He's a good engineer, right? So try to be as exhaustive as possible. Somebody could have talked about OSI layer also when I was asking for responses. So you have to play the thing in your mind. See, I'm telling you, I'm like currently I'm like 12-year experience, but computer science is not difficult. It is a child's game only. If you understand and if you can play anything in your mind and explain anything, understand. If you all that you have to do is you have to understand everything slow clearly कि तुम किसी बच्चे को भी समझा सको. You should be able to teach a layman also how that thing is working, right? Because if your concepts are clear, you will know end to end, right? How something is working. You don't need to be specific because har cheez mein there are so many software, there are so many versions, but the foundational knowledge is always the same, right? The science is always the same. So you have to strive to get that foundational knowledge. If you have that foundational knowledge, if you know the funda at the root level, then nobody can shake you. Okay, so again, to the freshers in the course, if there are any freshers in the batch, I've been seeing all this going on lead code. So I met somebody on the chat only. He had solved like 500 or 1,000 questions on lead code. But when I asked him, you'll need Linux for this course, he said that he has never even opened Linux. अभी मेरा तो मतलब हंसी छूट गई कि भैया 500 क्वेश्चन 1000 क्वेश्चन तुम कर चुके हो, महीनों बर्बाद कर चुके हो, बट दिस इज द कोर थिंग. यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम. अगर तुमने ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम पढ़ा ही नहीं अपने बीटेक में और तुमने लिनक्स कभी देखा ही नहीं है, तो तुमने क्या ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम पढ़ा है? व्हाट मतलब इट्स ऑल रबिश. यू आर जस्ट लर्निंग वन टूल इन द टूल बॉक्स एंड यू आर जस्ट थिंकिंग कि मुझे इससे जॉब मिल जाएगा. So change that mindset, get a holistic mindset, change your mindset, get the mindset कि I have to learn all these fundamentals of computer science. I have to understand everything in depth from like end to end, so that I can teach anything to anyone. Right, and once you get that mindset, you can be fit anywhere in the industry. एक job से निकाला गया, you can go and interview for any other job in the industry. Okay, so if you have that kind of mindset, okay, so you can very easily like switch roles, and that is where the industry is moving. If you have seen my earlier session that I did on resume building, I told you clearly there also. Now all the companies are moving to Agile and Scrum, and they expect every team member to know how to write test cases, how to do DevOps, how to do development, because now the concept of having a separate QA team, having a separate DevOps team is dying concept. Okay, so in the new Scrum Agile world, everyone has to be a cross-functional engineer. Everyone has to be a all-rounder. Everyone should know everything, right? So if you are engineer, if you real engineer, then you should know everything. It's not like कि मुझे तो बस Java ही आती है. Okay, so then this is what you'll face. कि एक जगह से lay off हुए, then you are getting depressed and you are sitting at home for a year. Okay, so try to become a genuine engineer. Don't try to become a Java coder or C coder. Okay, so once you start doing that kind of thing, you will grow very at a very fast pace, and you will be able to switch roles within the industry also. Okay. Chalo, so any questions till this point? Okay, so yeah, we'll move forward then. So for this, basically, this is a very basic interaction that is going on for between internet applications. Okay, so I'll maybe put it here. Right, so there is a web client. If the common language is HTTP, it might not always be HTTP, though HTTP is the most common protocol. So 90% time it will be HTTP now, but IoT applications don't use HTTP because HTTP is a heavy protocol. They'll use gRPC protobuf or something like that. Okay, so if it is HTTP, then it will be HTTP client, HTTP server, and then application server is something where your code get executed. So this is just a route where you are getting that communication in HTTP, right? But if you think, just Google what is actually happening, if I search for something, let's say I search for cloud, so assuming this Google's backend is written in C, so actually ho kya raha hoga backend mein, there might be some function which would be called, some search function which would have been called with the query equal to cloud, right? When I ran this, right? So actual processing will happen within some particular application server only, right? And which would be written in some programming language, which would be some function in some microservice, right? Or some service or some software, right? So this HTTP server is just doing the job of a translator, right? You're sending some request, but actual processing is happening within the application server, right? Which might be again, every language has its own application server. So we'll talk about that later in the course. Okay. Yeah, any questions? Anyone? Okay. So it's not connection, it's collection of networks. So internet basically a collection of networks and a pool of web, or I shouldn't say just web, क्योंकि अभी mobile पे आ गया, so pool of application running on it. Okay, so अब आते हैं, what are stacks? This is not data structure stacks. I'm talking about software stacks. So can somebody answer, like, what is the concept of stacks in our world?
Hi Rahul, this side Gaurav.
Yeah, good.
A stack like bundle of application server, web server, database server, kind of, which use and for running any site or application or mobile app.
Yeah, this is not a very correct answer. You're just giving application. Give a generic answer. You're talking about a specific stack. Can you think over and like reiterate this answer?
Uh,
What is
like
what is the stack? अभी तुमसे कोई 5 साल का बच्चा पूछेगा what is stack, तुम उसको बोलोगे वेब सर्वर, एप्लीकेशन सर्वर, वो कुछ समझ में आएगा क्या? If your father asks what is stack, उनको what do you say? Application server, web server, collection of server.
It's like
So
a
if you
disk
say to your
stand.
father, how will you tell this? What is the software stack?
It's like a disk stand.
Sorry, yeah, Kuldeep, go ahead.
It's like a disk stand where you put a DVD or CD on it.
नहीं. Again, I'm not talking about that stack.
You told me like if children ask, then
English
how you
वाला
would say.
stack नहीं है. It's not that.
Okay.
Stack वही है. In a way, it is a collection of layers or
Uh-huh.
a collection of things. But software के terms में बोले तो जैसे you might have heard of LAMP stack, right? और MERN stack लोग आजकल बोल रहे हैं. Stack चल रहा है. So it's same kind of thing. What is basically a software stack? Okay, chalo, let me answer that question. So stack is basically a collection of or combination of technologies and tools that work together to provide a specific functionality or service. Okay, so there's a ChatGPT definition. So I copied it from ChatGPT only. Okay, but yeah, this is a good definition. So stacks are basically a set of tools or technologies, or you can say a set of softwares which work together to provide a end-to-end functionality, right? Abhi jo humne example dekha, so this was also a stack, right? यहाँ पे it was a stack of a web server and an application server, right? Again, Google will also be storing something at the some information about you, right? You'll have an account or something, so there will be some data related component also. So a database server or database will also be there, right? So if we think about a very simple stack, let's talk about it and take answers from you only. So yeah, before that, I think one more line I need to add in the definition, that these stacks are often made up of several layers, and each layer represents a different aspect of application or service. Yeah, this is not important. Let's skip this. Okay, so let's see what are the typical components of the stack that you use. So few we have already seen. We have seen web or HTTP server. We have seen application server, and we have seen I've talked about database also, right? So database server. Okay. So what else do you think? What other components have you seen in the stack?
So there should be operating system in the foundation layer.
Okay. No, Piyush is saying my voice is lagging. Is it lagging for everyone or just for Piyush?
It's working for me.
It's okay
It's
for
fine.
It's fine. Okay. So yeah, Piyush, maybe you need to check your network. I think you are on a slow network. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Munir.
Yeah. So I guess on the foundation layer we have the operating system layer, which runs all this functionality bundled together.
Right. So operating system, see, it's yeah, that's a correct answer. But operating system is anyways required, right? It's a base layer. Anything you want to run, you need a hardware. It's like you're saying I need CPU. So CPU and operating system is something we definitely need. But yeah, we can ignore that, because if web server is running on a separate machine, then it will need its own OS hardware. Application server, if it is running on second host, it will require its own application host hardware and OS. So that's something that you can ignore, right? At least if I talk about the software or the tools that you'll need, OS is a common among everything, right? Without OS and without the actual CPU and memory, you can't run anything. Right? So that's the base platform for everything that way, right? So OS and hardware is common across all the components. So that is anyways. That's
So a programming stack, a programming language, programming framework.
yeah, so that is the part of the application server. I'll come into go more into it. So let's say you are using let's start with Java, right? So what all technologies have you worked in? So Java, people who have worked in Java, what are the application servers that you use in Java? Okay, okay, take time. So I'll just copy it for you guys.
JBoss, Tomcat.
Right, Tomcat, Glassfish, WebLogic, right? So, uh, so basically, whatever application you are running will sit inside the application server. Whatever program that you are writing will sit and run or execute inside the application server. So, application server is something which provides programming runtime. Okay, and again, there might be more than one application server that you might be running as part of your application. So let's think about this. Let's say Facebook, right? When I run Facebook, I see feed. I see uh, this chat application. Okay, chat nahi dikh raha hai. So basically, what is going on in the background? There might be a chat program running, there might be a feed program running, and then maybe for photos and all, there might be a separate program running, right? So there might be, and the chat program might be written in Java, feed program might be written in Node.js, and maybe some other programs, search and all might be written in Golang. I'm just giving some random examples, right? So, which means ki to host Facebook, I will need 3 application servers, right? Because there are basically I've broken down Facebook as an application into 3 different microservices or sub applications, you can say, and each application is written in its own language. Why is it written in its own language? Because every language has an advantage, right? If you want like concurrency, high concurrency kind of is the goal or the use case for your application, you will probably use Golang, right? If you need to do a lot of application level parsing, maybe Perl or Python might be a good choice, right? If you need to run it on wide variety of devices, portability is a requirement, you might be using Java, right? So again, that's why I say learning just one language will not solve your problem, because you need to get that tool kit or tool set mindset. These are all tools. If you're just going around with Java, that is like you are just roaming around with just one hammer in the hand, and then you can say ki haan main pura bhi furniture bana दूंगा. You cannot make entire furniture with just hammer, right? You need all the tools in the tool set. So it's the same thing. That's why you should learn every language which is coming into market. You should keep aware कि अभी आज के दिन में Kotlin आया है, Kotlin क्यों अच्छा है, Kotlin कहाँ पे use होता है, right? So new languages keep on coming in. Golang is like recently still maybe newest among all these. It's not a new language, almost 6 or 7 years old now, but Golang has its own specific use cases, right, where it is good. So that way you should understand कि कौन सी चीज, कौन सा tool, कौन सी language कहाँ पे अच्छा है, and where I should use it. Again, a general tip for you to improve yourself as software engineers. ठीक है, anyways, coming back to this, so every language has its own runtime or application server. ठीक है, runtime तो चलो ठीक है, runtime is what you install in your laptops and all to run that program, but that runtime is not powerful. That runtime is good for your development environment, your laptop and all, but to have a production kind of environment, you need some dedicated application servers, which are like highly concurrent, written in a way that they provide the runtime also, but they also provide the stability and concurrency and security requirements of a production environment. That's why you have these production level softwares, right, called application servers. ठीक है, तो जैसे Java में you have a WebLogic, Tomcat, Glassfish. PHP में there is PHP FPM is most popular. Share client is also there. C में मुझे पता नहीं है. Maybe you guys can answer. Who can see? Python में Flask is there. Django is there. Right? There are a lot more also, but yeah, these are the 2 popular ones. Perl में Dancer is there. Node में Node.js is there. Right? Golang में Jin है, और भी बहुत सारे हैं. Right? So all these application servers are the one where your actual code runs, right? If you get confused, again, this HTTP तो बस translator है, which translate your stuff into HTTP language, right? लेकिन actual processing तो किसी program, किसी method में होगी ना, किसी function में होगी ना. So that function call is what basically you get the request in HTTP, and then that route or function call you map in the application server, right? Or in your language. Key for this route, this is the function that you have to execute, right? That's why you write all those APIs and Swagger APIs or routes that you implement, right? So if you don't know about API programming, now you know why it's important to learn API programming or ये कहाँ पे use होती है. So to get interface between HTTP protocol and your actual application, whatever you are writing in your language, right? Respective language. Okay, so these are like basic components. There are some advanced components also. So these are the minimal components I would say that you need to write a very basic program also. कि HTTP server, application server और database तो चाहिए ही चाहिए. Database और database server तो चाहिए चाहिए, right? But there are more advanced components also which are still popular in bigger stacks or bit more complex stacks. Can somebody give some examples?
Can I say DevOps tools like Jenkins, Kubernetes, Docker?
Yeah, so again, DevOps tools are not part of your stack, right? Because DevOps tools. So let's go one by one. So you said Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, right?
Yeah.
So let's analyze your answer. Okay, I'm not saying whether it's right or not. I don't know. Let's try to analyze. So Jenkins is something that you need for CI/CD, right? So again,
Yes,
it's a horizontal tool. It's not part of your application runtime, right? To run Facebook.com, even if I don't set a CI/CD pipeline, I can still run it, right? If you have to
Yeah.
launch your own web store on internet, you still can live without Jenkins, right? So this is definitely not a part of a stack, right? It's more of a horizontal or DevOps tool, like you said. Again, Docker and Kubernetes make your life easy. We'll learn all these things, Docker and Kubernetes in this course later. So these will be required to scale your stuff, right? To deploy it across cluster of servers and all, right? But without this also you can live, right? You can still live, come up with a big server. You can come up with a single node supercomputer and you can still live your life. You can still host your website, right? So these are not actually the components of a stack. Rather, I'll give it out now. So other components can be like caches, right? So
Oh yeah.
so caches like Redis or Varnish might be one example, or you might need load balancers, right? So that you can distribute your request among a pool of servers. All these concepts we'll learn. Don't worry if you don't understand them at this point. Again, message queues you might want to use, wherein you want to you want to like pool queue up requests somewhere, and then you want to have that producer consumer model in your programming language where you have a lot of consumers listening on some queue and getting jobs from there, right? So for that, implementing that producer consumer pattern, you might need message queues like RabbitMQ or Kafka, right? Or for more advanced applications, you might have data lakes. You might need data lakes or data warehouses. So Snowflake. What more? Or Redshift or BigQuery. Right? So yeah, there can be more components, but these are more advanced level. These you might not always need, but the most basic ones are the web server, application server, and database. Okay. Yeah. Any questions till this point?
Will it also have like the web client, like let's say a browser or a browser,
Yeah,
like on which we can interact with the
so think that way. So think that you are hosting Amazon.com, right? You are hosting a web store. Web client तो उसको चाहिए होगा ना, who's coming to talk to you. You are setting up the server, right? If you are opening McDonald's, you will not, clients will not be part of your McDonald's, right? Clients will be coming to you to eat burgers to your place, right? But you'll have servers or the person who sit on counters, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So you can think in a way, McDonald's वाला example से भी you can think कि web server is the counter, right? Where जहाँ पे those people who sit with those vending machines. Then application server is actually the kitchen, जहाँ पे जाके वो तुम्हारे order process हो रहा है, right? And database might be refrigerator. I don't know. The fridge in the store. Okay. Okay. Any more questions?
Hello. Yes,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a doubt in web server and application server. Like I don't differentiate these. Like
Sure. Sure.
what's the core difference between these two?
Right. So let's take an example. I don't know who's the Japanese Rashtrapati, but maybe Biden comes to India, okay? And Modi, let's assume कि Modi knows only Hindi, right? So Biden is from US, he speaks only English, and Modi speaks Hindi. So we need a translator in between, right? First of all, we need a common language between Biden and Modi, right? Alok, where are you?
Yeah.
So we need a common language first of all. So chalo, we chose we will use English as the common language, right? So we need a translator on our side because Modi doesn't know English. Let's take that assumption. I know he knows English, but so we need a translator on our side, right? And the common language that we have chosen is English. So यहाँ पे in a way HTTP is a common language, right? So two people are talking. One is client, one is server. Client is somebody who's for a service, and server is who's providing a service, right? So they are talking HTTP language now. So मोदी ने एक ट्रांसलेटर रखा, उसका नाम था HTTP सर्वर, ठीक है? And मोदी को तो जावा ही आती है केवल. मोदी स्पीक्स जावा, राइट? सो अब बाइडेन ने जो भी बोला उसको कि ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, ये प्रपोजल है, इन तो HTTP सर्वर में HTTP प्रोटोकॉल में रैप होके वो रिक्वेस्ट आया बाइडेन का, या इंग्लिश में या HTTP में, फिर वो ट्रांसलेट होके मोदी के पास जावा में पहुंचा, राइट? कि ये मेथड है, ये क्वेरी कॉल करना है, ये मेथड के पैरामीटर्स हैं. तो वो जो जावा वाली प्रोसेसिंग है वो एप्लीकेशन सर्वर में हो रही है, राइट? वेब सर्वर क्या कर रहा है? इट्स द फ्रंट, it's handling your request, right? It's the you can say the face of the communication, or face of the store, or the face of the website, or face of the communication, okay? And it's handling the translation part through the HTTP protocol. समझ में आया? नहीं तो मैं फिर से थोड़ा और
Like but जो अपना जो कोड है हुआ वो that is hosted on application server, right?
correct.
And the hosting is not related to web server. It is a different like it is for
don't go to hosting. अभी कंफ्यूज मत हो, hosting की अभी मैंने बात ही नहीं करी, बिल्कुल. Don't go there.
Okay.
Just talk to this word, ठीक है? So you wrote some hello world program in Java, let's say, whatever language you work in, ठीक है? अभी या hello world की वजह थोड़ा complicate कर देते हैं. Let's say you wrote a program to add two numbers, ठीक है? And now I want to create a website जहाँ पे I take two numbers in some input box and I call your function which is written in Java and get the result from that, ठीक है ना? So whatever input I'm taking through the web page, that input has to be finally translated into a HTTP request, right? Because whatever web page through which I'll be sending request, that will sending a HTTP request only, right? Because browser में तो HTTP चलता है, HTTP और HTTPS, right? So अभी HTTP request web server पे आएगी, and then that web server needs to send that request or handhold that request to your Java program, right? Web server के पास request आया कोई कि किसी endpoint पे कि ये दो query parameters हैं, इनको add करना है, तो that web server will hand over that request in your language, that will call your Java program, right? So ये तो दो चीजें चाहिए ना. एक चीज चाहिए जो सबसे पहले कि वेबसाइट की रिक्वेस्ट हैंडल कर पाए, उसके लिए वेब सर्वर चाहिए, राइट? HTTP सर्वर. और फिर HTTP सर्वर को किसी तरीके से तुम्हारे प्रोग्राम से इंटरफेस करेंगे जावा वाले, so that it is able to get that request in your language. अच्छा, अभी हो क्या रहा है कि not always you need web browser, the server. Right now, a lot of languages have middlewares or libraries which provide the functionality of HTTP server. Okay, जैसे Node.js में you know Express is there, right? Golang में HTTP module है. Java में I don't remember. Java में भी HTTP ही होता है, I think. कोई तो function होगा, ठीक है ना? तो but these things you cannot actually use in a production environment. Development के लिए ठीक है, development के because in a proper highly scalable in an actual production environment you need a proper software which can do this, but it can do a lot of other things also. ठीक है, तो जैसे Nginx है या Apache है, these provide lot of other features also. They avoid DDoS, they provide security, right? They will detect DDoS attacks and they'll block them, right? If some particular IP is sending a large number of requests, so they have a lot of, they will do this what is this called, HTTPS क्या बोलते हैं, SSL offloading, right? So they'll verify your certificate and all when you talk to HTTPS and all that. So all those functionalities, all these libraries that you use in your code, जिस वजह से you haven't come across the HTTP server is fine for development, but in actual production environment that will not work. Okay, you get the point, right?
Yeah.
So you actually need a dedicated HTTP server at the end of the day because of all these functionalities for async functionality that the web servers provide, right? For concurrency, all that. I might be missing the list, but yeah, there is everything. Any other question? Okay, so अब बात करते हैं scalability की. So before coming to scalability, let's take a example. ठीक है, let's say I'm a business. ठीक है, I want to open a business and I want to open a store like Amazon. ठीक है, तो Amazon ही नाम रख लेते हैं, तो लेते हैं. Assume that you are Jeff Bezos, ठीक है, and you are launching Amazon.com. Okay, its year is 1990. And so you went to GoDaddy, okay, and it's a new store you are starting for the first time. So you went to GoDaddy and you took a hosting there, okay, और वहाँ पे तुमने maybe 1,000 rupees a year वाला plan ले लिया, right? And you hosted your website live, okay. So अभी web तुमने टेस्ट करा, साइट लॉन्च करा, तुमने टेस्ट करा कि हाँ भाई 1.5 सेकंड्स में रिस्पॉन्स आ रहा है, सही है, बढ़िया फास्ट चल रही है वेबसाइट, लॉन्च कर दी, ठीक है. तो लॉन्च पे क्या था, कॉन्करेंट यूजर्स में भी पहले दिन तुमने 8-10 दोस्तों को बताया, मे बी you started getting some traffic, right? You got 10 users, concurrent users, right? 10 parallel users in a way on the first day or first month of launch, ठीक है. So let me add a period column for timeline. 1 month, right? So now you started doing some marketing or 1.5 seconds से ज़्यादा या let's say time लेगी अगर website load होने में, तो obviously people will start feeling irritated, right? So industry standard है 0.5 second का, so I'm just taking that, ठीक है. So let's say after 3 months you earned some money, you did some marketing and your traffic got increased, right? So पहले जहाँ पे parallel में 10 लोग आ रहे थे, now you started getting 100 concurrent users. तो होगा क्या, सर्वर तो छोटा सा ही है, GoDaddy will not give you everything in 1,000 rupees, right? So now what started happening is that your server started pooling request or it started hanging basically, right? Or it started kind of blocking request. तो अभी जो site 0.5 second में load हो रही थी, let's say it started taking 5 seconds, right? So now again people stop visiting your website, right? So if you will be smart, you will be measuring this time, right? You'll be measuring these two metrics. You'll set up monitoring on your website. You'll see कि concurrent में मेरे पास कितने parallel user आ रहे हैं. You'll set up Google Analytics or something, and you'll set up some analytics on your web server, which will give you these metrics, right? So you start measuring कि मेरी website पे parallel में कितने लोग आ रहे हैं. And Jeff Bezos was smart, right? So he'll not wait for this thing to happen. So he'll go to GoDaddy and he'll say कि अभी मुझे बड़ा वाला plan दो. He'll say कि मुझे 10,000 रुपए महीने वाला plan दो, right? So GoDaddy gave him a bigger server. ठीक है, तो let's say this server for let's say this server was 512 MB, one CPU, right? So now Bezos went to GoDaddy and they gave him bigger server. So let's say 4 GB, 4 CPU, right? So now it is still able to achieve the same throughput, right? Abhi और पैसा बना और marketing हो गई, right? After 6 months, let's say started getting very good traffic, right? 1,000 visitors, right? And this will actually go on, right? So if you have to maintain this 0.5 seconds load time for your website, what you'll have to do eventually is keep on increasing the size of the server, right? So let's say 1,000 pay, he got the biggest server in the market. Let's say it was 256 GB, 64 CPU, right? So यहाँ तक तो ठीक था, ठीक है? So this was the, let's say this is the limit. Let's say at some point it reached 10,000 or 1 lakh parallel users, right? For his website, let's say a year or two later, right? And if he has to maintain that level of SLA, again, note down these terms that I'm telling. SLA, what is SLA, right? SLA is कि you have to maintain some service level agreement, right? कि इतना इससे ज़्यादा load time मेरा नहीं जाना चाहिए website का, because इससे ज़्यादा गया तो then people will start dropping off, right? And your business will take a hit. So if you want to go to this level, let's say 1 lakh concurrent users, definitely चलो ये 256 की जगह हो सकता है कि 1 TB का भी आ जाए मार्केट में, सुपर कंप्यूटर कोई आ जाए, 264 CPU की जगह let's say 256 CPU वाला भी आ गया, but it will at some point it will stop, right? कि दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा server you got and brought up, but now you cannot scale further, right? You've reached the limit or vertical limit of scaling, right? So that is what is the concept of vertical scalability or vertical scaling. तो अभी हम यहाँ पे क्या कर रहे थे? What we were doing here is vertical scaling, Amazon.com, right? So now what you'll have to do is go into the concept of horizontal scaling. So because there'll always be some bigger limit कि सबसे बड़ा कहीं पे जाके तो रुकेगा ना, कि उससे बड़ा server आता ही नहीं होगा. So what you'll do it at that point is कि if you have to go from this 1,000 concurrent users to 10,000 concurrent users or 1 lakh concurrent users, so you will say कि I'll get 100 of these servers, similar kind of servers, and I'll run them in parallel as a cluster. Okay, so that's the concept of horizontal scaling. Or you can also say it's the concept of distributed computing. Okay, so again, going back to the same example, if you want to support this level now, the level of 10,000 or 1 lakh concurrent users for the same thing, you might now go for the same thing. Whatever single server was serving 100 concurrent requests, you can take thousands of those servers and make a cluster out of them, right? And then deploy your application horizontally. This is exactly what Google did in past. Google, so again, servers क्या होते हैं, किस तरह के होते हैं? Let me show you that. So if you must have heard of data centers, right? So data centers are like your office buildings only, but यहाँ पे offices नहीं होते, लोग नहीं बैठते हैं. You have machines like these, right? So these are called racks. Whatever you see these, right? So these are actually racks, and within these racks you have compute nodes. Like this. Like this. Okay, so this is like one rack. This is like one rack which you pull out of that whole almari like thing, this almirah like thing, right? So if you see closely, this is like one rack, whole rack, and then you have these small computers, and each one has like each like compute node in the rack is like very powerful. It has like memory in the range of 256 GB to almost 1 TB RAM, and it has like 64 GB, 64 CPU cores. So that's a typical configuration of a single compute node in a rack, right? And then data centers have like hundreds of racks or in one data center, right? So it's a powerful, overall, it's a powerful unit, you can say, right? A data center can serve like lot of compute power overall, right? So basically, Google, when they were doing it initially, they didn't have this kind of data centers. They took the commodity hardware, which is like CPU boxes that you have, and they created a cluster out of that. That was the big data era. Google commodity hardware cluster. There might be some images online. Okay, anyways, yeah, so that's what Google did at some point. I don't know if they're doing that now, but yeah, that's how it was. So they actually took thousands of these small CPUs and they wired them together and formed a cluster. Okay, so this is the concept of horizontal scaling. अब इसको करने के लिए, if I go back to our concept of initial stacks, so what I'll do is this is one stack, right? One web server, one instance of Nginx, one instance of, let's say, Django, and one instance of MySQL, let's say. I'm using MySQL as a database, right? So database again can be, again, depending on the kind of database. I think I missed the copy this, right? So database can again be different kind of databases, RDBMS or NoSQL or analytics or time series or graph databases, right? So you ran one copy of these, but if you have like thousands of those machines, or if you're forming cluster, then you have to run thousands of copies of web server, databases, and HTTP servers, right? So you have to create 1,000 copies of your stack. Okay. So managing all that, now you can understand, will be a big task, right? Manually going and installing the same software on 1,000 computers is not possible, right? So there are tools for automating all that, for running clusters and all that, and that is what we'll be learning as part of this course. Okay, so it will be very interesting. And not only at the management level or installation level, you'll need to do horizontal scalability. Also in the application, you'll have to do horizontal scalability. So let's say we'll take example again of Amazon.com. Okay, so let's say you're selling books on Amazon.com, right? And there's a book, let's say You Can Win. There is a book called You Can Win, and there are I have now a cluster of computers where I'm running this Amazon.com backend software, right? So there might be a server S1, and then there might be a server S2, and then similarly there might be 100 servers, right? But this book has a limited stock. Let's say this book का केवल एक stock बचा हुआ है, right? Rest all copies are sold. और now दो user आए, एक राम आया, एक श्याम आया. राम की request गई server S1 पे. He tried buying same copy. Shyam ki request गई server S2 पे. He also tried buying the same book, right? So now at the software level also, you'll have to do some sort of managing these race conditions, right? So horizontal scalability is not just about like making copies of your stack and installing them on hundreds of computers. It requires effort at both ends. One is at the installation level, and other is at the software or within the application level, right? So you'll have to use some sort of semaphore or some race condition management tools, constructs in your programming language to handle this. If somebody picked that book first, added it to his cart, then the other guy should not be able to add this to his cart also, right? At the same time. So horizontal scaling or जो system design term आजकल बड़ा fancy word चला है, so all that is a combination of these tools. अभी everybody was asking me कि ये system design सिखाएंगे क्या इस course में? So I'm teaching you half of the system design in this course. As in कि deploy कैसे करते हैं your application in a horizontally scalable manner, right? So this is other practical half of the system design. Within the programming language, how do you do all these things? That is the other part of system design, which I will not be covering in this course. Okay, because this is not a programming course. This is actually more of a cloud and DevOps course. Okay. Any questions to this point?
Yeah, Rahul, what does this mean? 4 GB/4 CPU?
हाँ ये I was giving you example, right? कि initially जैसे मैंने या जब Google ने जब site launch करी थी, then he took a plan of 1,000 rupees, right? So then he got a server, assuming उसको 512 MB और एक CPU वाला server मिला था, right? लेकिन that server can serve only 10 concurrent users at this SLA, right? 0.5 second का. So then he got a bigger server. That's what the example I was giving him. Just a random assumption. Let's say he got a server of 4 GB and 4 CPU. This server could scale maybe till 100 parallel users, right? Iske baad, he had to get even bigger server, right? And that will stop at some point. That vertical scaling that he's trying to do will stop at some point. कि उससे बड़ा machine ही नहीं आता होगा, उससे बड़ा ये compute node आता ही नहीं होगा, right? Market में. So that's when he'll have to start going into horizontal scaling. So that's what startup do. Same thing is नई startup launch होती है, तो they initially don't go into all this complicated stuff, horizontal scaling, Kubernetes and all that. So नई startup होगी, they'll simply keep on upscaling the machine or do the vertical scaling, right? But एक बार उनका जब client pool और traffic इतना बढ़ जाएगा ना, they will start cutting over to all these technologies. अब यहाँ से तुम लोगों को ये भी समझ में आएगा कि job क्यों important है, ये सब technologies क्यों important है. जो भी बड़ी कंपनी होंगी, they will, who are working at a higher scale, they will need all these technologies because they will go into a level कि vertical scaling will not work for them any longer, right? So, and these companies are the ones who usually pay well. So all these technologies, horizontal scaling, distributed computing जो use करती है, those are the ones who work on planet scale. Planet scale मतलब जिनके users human population के एक percentage में है. So those companies are the ones that pay well. Those are the ones who pay good packages, right? So that's why it's good to learn all these technologies. Okay, Piyush, your question got answered. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, any other question? Okay, so yeah, I'll move ahead then.
Rahul, I have one question. You have
Sure.
mentioned, can you please scroll it up a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah, you have mentioned like 4 GB in the horizontal. Let's first talk about the vertical scaling, right? 4 GB slash 4 CPU. I understand it like 4 GB means each 4 GB assigned to each CPU, right? 4 CPU.
This is RAM.
Parallelly.
4 GB RAM, 6 GB RAM, 1 TB RAM. Okay.
1 TB of RAM is assigned to 256 CPU parallelly, right?
नहीं इतना बड़ा computer है. You don't get these kind of laptops, but in data center there are machines of this scale also. There will be one single compute node with 1 TB RAM and 256 CPU.
So this 1 TB RAM is associated with all these 256 CPU, or it is divided among all these 256 CPU?
Obviously it will be divided. तुम्हारे laptop पे you have 16 GB RAM and 8 CPUs. So how do you care how it is divided? That's
right.
Your operating system managing all those things, right? Same thing is there in data center also.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we'll move ahead then. Any more questions? Okay, so in this whole course, we will actually do a very real world, very hands-on problem. We'll do a project actually, and what we'll use, the sample stack that we'll use is the WordPress stack. WordPress, I'm sure a lot of you might know about WordPress. So you can go and read about WordPress on Wikipedia. So WordPress is a blogging software, which is like most popular blogging software all over the world. 19 years old, I think it said, right? Initial release 19 years ago, right? So almost it is said 60 or 70%. Now that percentage will definitely be decreasing over the years. But at one point, 70% of internet was WordPress. It was like so popular. Like everybody who's ever like hosted his WordPress, hosted his blog or website was actually on WordPress. So WordPress क्या चीज़ है? Let's understand first. WordPress is a PHP based a monolithic application. Okay, so it's a single application which is written completely in PHP. Okay, so the application is PHP, but to store the data, it uses a database, which is usually MySQL, and it's basically a LAMP stack based stack. So LAMP you might know, right? LAMP is L for is Linux, A for is Apache, M for is MySQL, and P is for PHP. Okay, so it's a LAMP stack based. Apache ki wajah nowadays Nginx is more popular. Apache was popular earlier, so we'll use this same stack and this same application in our experimentation, whatever projects will do or whatever assignments will do in this course. Okay, so your first assignment or your first task will be to set up WordPress LAMP stack. Okay, so I'll explain now further about how you'll do this assignment and how you set up this LAMP stack. Okay, so first thing you'll need is a machine where you'll run, or the operating system, right? So we'll use Ubuntu. Let's fix one version for the entire class. So which is the most current long-term edition of Ubuntu? I think 20. Okay, LTS is basically long-term version. So these usually don't go away. Like they have support from the company for long-term. So yeah, I think 2022 or 20 got released. So yeah, let's use this. We shouldn't use very recent one because then some support might not be there. So we should not use very old one also. So I think 20. Okay, Ubuntu 18 came in September 21. So yeah, I think this should be a good version to use. So let's use, everybody in the class should use the same version so that the problems that you guys face will be kind of similar. Okay, so everybody should use Ubuntu 18, okay, as the operating system. So as web server, everybody will use Nginx. As the application server, everybody will use PHP FPM. FPM is fast process manager. This is the most popular application server in PHP. And for database, everybody will use MySQL or MariaDB. MySQL, MariaDB is sort of same. Actually, it will be MariaDB only now, because what happened is that MySQL was built by Sun, which built Java, and then Oracle bought Sun. So Oracle is now a private company. So the same MySQL was, the open source MySQL was renamed to MariaDB, and it was the same. It's a fork of MySQL only. Okay, so MySQL, MariaDB, whatever you get, you will use that. Okay, it's the same thing only. It's just that the MariaDB is open source, MySQL is Oracle only. Okay, so this is the stack that we'll use, and every one of you will set up this stack. Okay, so the first step in this whole process is to get a virtual machine or get a compute node. Okay, so since this is a cloud course, and each one of you will have to get a sign up with some cloud online. Okay, so every cloud hosting has a free tier. Okay, so I found this GitHub which keeps track of all the free tiers. Okay, so I'm including this link in the notes. Go through this link. I'll not enforce any one cloud. Again, what is cloud? First of all, let me quickly answer that. So hota kya hai ki cloud providers, whatever you hear nowadays, right? Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, or OCI is Oracle Cloud. All these providers have their own data centers. Whatever you saw here, right? Whatever I did that. Right, so they have, each of these companies have their own data centers, and basically you are able now to rent a very small piece in these data centers, right? So you want a 4 GB machine, 4 GB computer or 8 GB computer. So you log on to their portal and you just pay the price, some a small rent for that 4 GB, 8 GB computer, right? So So you, first of all, these machines are huge, right? I told you they can have like 1 TB of RAM. So they run some sort of virtualization software on top of these, like VMware or VirtualBox or KVM. All these softwares are there, and then they are able to sort of partition these machines into smaller virtual machines. Okay, so if there's a 256 GB machine, they might be able to break it into 64 VMs, 4 GB VMs, right? And that's how they are able to sell those 4 GB virtual machines online, right? These are called compute nodes that these hosts sell, right? So each of them provides free tier, like Azure has $200 credit for 30 days. Google Cloud also has $300 credit for a month. Oracle Cloud also has $300, and Oracle Cloud also has a free tier where there are few machines that you can use for lifetime also for free, like ARM based or AMD based machines, right? So I'll suggest you guys to sign up on any of the vendors. Like if you want to target some particular, learn some specific cloud, that is also fine. Just sign up there. So first step is to sign up on some cloud and get one compute node there. Okay, some small compute node, maybe 4 GB compute node you can get. Okay, to start with. So the first step is to get a VM or compute node on a cloud. Okay, so just go for a free tier, sign up somewhere and get a compute node. So every cloud has a different terminology. AWS, if you have to get a compute node, you have to go to the EC2 service. Within these services that you have, they just don't provide like compute on rent. They provide a lot of different things on rent. Okay, so there might be hundreds of different cloud services that all these cloud providers provide. So you don't have to go after every other service. You have to just go for the compute service and get a VM for rent, a small VM for rent for doing all these experiments that we'll be doing in this course. Okay, so AWS पे compute वाली service को बोलते हैं EC2. So you go and search for EC2 instance and get a GCP पे इसको बोलते हैं Google Compute. Azure पे भी I think Azure Compute बोलते हैं. Google कर लेते हैं. I think Azure Compute only. Okay. So Oracle या अलीबाबा वाले भी अभी रिसेंटली मैंने देखा था फ्री टियर काफी उनका अच्छा था 1 साल का फ्री टियर था. So just choose whichever free tier works for you and get a VM there. Okay, get a small VM. 4 GB should be more than enough for this experiment that we are going to do. Okay, so once you are signing up for a compute, it will ask for the shape. Okay, so shape is basically कि कितना बड़ा compute चाहिए. तो shape usually micro में काम हो जाएगा. So again सबका अपना terminology होगा, but try to get a 4 GB RAM VM. Okay, VM or compute. Okay, so choose a shape, and then it will also ask for what operating system you want. Okay, so choose OS as, like I said, Ubuntu 80s. Okay, so this is the first step of the assignment. You have to sign up on one of the cloud services for their free tier and get one VM. Okay, so once you get the VM, the next step would be to set up that VM to use it from your computer, right? Because that VM is running in their data center. That data center might be in US, India, Africa, Singapore, anywhere of place of the world, right? But you will be sitting here in India, and you have to set up and use that VM, right? So it's a remote computer running somewhere, and you have to use that, right? So first of all, you will have to open an access, right? So from their web page, from their UI, Amazon's, if you're using AWS console website, or if you're using Google Cloud website, there will be a way to open ports on your VM. Okay, so once you sign up for your VM, you go to the VM page, there will be a security list, or so it's usually called security list in AWS world. Again, terminology हर cloud की अलग होती है, so you have to just Google कि how do I open ports on my VM on whatever cloud you are on. Okay, so right? So you have to open 3 ports. 22 port किस लिए होता है? SSH करने के लिए. How many of you don't know about SSH? कोई है क्लास में जिसको SSH के बारे में नहीं पता है? Okay, so I think all 26 people know about SSH. Very good. So first 22 port is for SSH because the way you will communicate to the remote VM from your machine is through a SSH client. जैसे अभी HTTP client पढ़ा था ना हम लोगों ने, तो similarly अब ये SSH protocol हम use कर रहे हैं. तो the language is SSH protocol. So we will be running SSH client in our machine, in our terminal, basically, right? So if I do SSH to some machine, I don't have a remote machine right now, but yeah, if I do try to do SSH on google.com, it will fail actually, because definitely they would have blocked their port 22, right? But once you have your machine's IP or host name, your VM's host name, if your port 22 is open for that VM, you will be able to SSH to that VM. Let's say my server is I don't know, whatever you call, you get, let's say, some IP for your machine, let's say some random IP I'm typing out here. Okay, so let's say you got this IP for your machine from your cloud, right, for your VM. So this is how you will actually SSH to your machine, right? The username for that operating system, do @ something. So what happens in the background is this is the SSH client, which is trying to connect to a SSH server which is running in your VM, right? And that's how they talk to it, and you get a remote access to the terminal of that VM or operating that machine, that computer, remote computer, right? So that's why you need to open port 22, which is the SSH server port on your VM. Okay. Similarly, also open port 80 and 443 for your server, because we will want to communicate via the HTTP protocol through the HTTP server also, right? So HTTP port is 80, HTTPS port is 443. So these 3 ports you have to open once you create your VM. Okay. Everything, once you like are able to SSH to your machine, everything, every setup that you will do, every installation, everything do as root user only. Let's not go into different users and complicate things, right? So let's keep our life easy. Do everything as root only. And thirdly, you might want to install a VNC server also on your machine. So if you're using Ubuntu, you'll use apt-get command for installing stuff. So, so set up everything as root. Next step is to access SSH, access a remote terminal using SSH. Okay. And then finally, if you want, you can also, this is an optional thing, install VNC server. Okay, so like you might have used a remote desktop in Windows, right? Similarly, in Linux, the remote desktop is called VNC server. Okay, so again, there will be some apt-get command for installing VNC server. So install VNC server on your VM, and on your machine, install a VNC client. Okay, so even from Mac also you can, so in Mac, you can install something like this VNC viewer, and then even from Mac you will be able to see the UI of your remote server, or even from Windows also you can, even in Windows you can install VNC client. See, so now see, understand, now we are using VNC protocol, so it's VNC server and VNC client, right? So on your laptop you'll install VNC client, and on the server you'll have VNC server. Okay, so this, if you do this much, now you'll have a remote computer where you'll do all your stuff, and you'll have a proper access setup to that computer. Any questions till this point? Hey, feel free. If you don't ask now, then you'll get stuck during assignment. So this is very important. You should ask questions now.
Rahul, if I'm running like Ubuntu 22 version, I need to change that to 18.
Yes. Reason is I want the entire class to use the same version only. That way, we will not get into troubles. And don't use a very recent version, because hota kya hai, I mean, Ubuntu 22 is, I think, very latest only, launched 2023 only, right? We just saw in that blog. So अभी होगा क्या कि some drivers might be broken, there might be some bugs. जो भी नया सॉफ्टवेयर है वो स्टेबल नहीं होगा उतना, right? So that's why I'm choosing 18 because this is 2021 version. All the bug fixes and patches, a lot of bug fixes and patches would have gone in, so it will be stable. And since everybody will use the same thing, that way errors जो सबको आएंगे kind of consistent रहेंगे, तो एक दूसरे की लोग help भी कर पाएंगे.
So this like Ubuntu 18 is our system's OS or like VM's OS?
VMOS. You don't even need a Linux on your system, right?
Okay,
Because
okay.
you are getting a remote VM which is running Ubuntu Linux. And like I said, if you install VNC, even from Windows laptop or even from a Mac laptop, Mac mein to chalo you have terminal, you can directly use this, but in Windows you will not have it, right? So in Windows, if you install VNC, then you can install a VNC client, which is you can get a Windows VNC client. Real VNC is if you go to Real VNC, right? Real VNC is a website or a company basically. So यहाँ पे if you go to VNC viewer, you'll get software for all the operating system. Windows का भी रहेगा, Mac का भी रहेगा, Linux का भी रहेगा, so Raspberry Pi का भी है. So you can do this. If you have a remote VM, then you can work with a Raspberry Pi also. Even mobile का भी है. So even if you don't have a laptop now, you can do this assignment. You can get
So
a
all these VNC installations and VNC server installations are to be done in VM.
correct.
Okay.
VM का ही तो तुम्हें remote desktop देखना है ना, तो server.
Nothing, we don't have to do anything in our system.
No. Because cloud is all about doing things remotely. When you join a company, you will not run software on your system, right? You'll do everything on company's development server or company's production server. Why not learn the same way?
Like, but did you mean by that like VNC client on our system and VNC server on
Windows पे कभी remote desktop करा है?
No.
अच्छा, तो basically अभी जो UI तुम देखते हो जब whenever you boot up your computer, so there's some UI that is coming up, right? Some stream of visual stuff coming up, right? So VNC server क्या होता है? It knows how to run a GUI server on the remote machine, okay? And stream that UI to your remote to your computer. Okay, so once you will run the VNC server, you will actually see the same thing within here also on your laptop. मतलब जो भी वहाँ पे तुम्हारा remote machine पे जो US में जहाँ पे तुम्हारा server चल रहा है, whatever is the visual thing of that computer, you will see that within this VNC client locally.
Means it is something like any desk.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, it's like any desk you can see.
Okay.
So we can get VM from AWS or other cloud.
This list is huge. The one that I gave you, right? GitHub list. That list is huge. जहाँ पे भी तुम लोगों को free tier अच्छा लगे. These are the popular clouds. That's why I have listed them because it's good to get these ones because resume में भी तुम डाल सकते हो ना. You worked on AWS, you worked on GCP, you worked on Azure, right? These are the ones companies ask in their JDs also. So it's better to learn these terms. सबकी terminology मैंने बोला ना अलग रहती है. कोई compute बोलता है, कोई EC2 बोलता है, कोई security less बोलता है, कोई कुछ और बोलता है. तो concept सारे same है, but सबकी terminology अलग है. तो if you learn those terminologies, if you start using AWS for now, so you'll learn the AWS terminology also in the process, right? It will benefit you in the long term. So better get free tiers from one of these four, the top ones.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. So assuming till this point you have set up your VM, you have set up your access. Abhi you have remote access to your Linux computer. So next step, in our stack, we have to set up web server, right? So let's see how to set up Nginx and its configuration. ठीक है, तो अभी हर सॉफ्टवेयर का every software has a config. तो ये config का क्या फंडा है? Let's try to understand that first. ठीक है, So everybody will have a washing machine or refrigerator at your home, right? तो वॉशिंग मशीन में जाओ के देखो या रेफ्रिजरेटर के अंदर देखो तो सबका एक कंट्रोल पैनल होता है, राइट? उसमें let's think of a automatic washing machine. They will have a lot of options, right? पानी कितना गर्म करना है, क्विक वॉश, ड्रायर केवल चलाना है, स्पिन कराना है, राइंस करना है, right? It has a bunch of options. So whatever it has basically a bunch of configuration. अब ये सोचो कि इस चीज को अगर ये पूरा पैनल ही हटा देते और इसको हम एक कंप्यूटर से जोड़ देते एंड आई वांटेड टू क्रिएट समथिंग कि a washing machine जिसको मैं अपने कंप्यूटर से एक्सेस कर पाऊँ, right? So I would have to convert all this controls into some sort of config, right? So अगर जैसे रेफ्रिजरेटर थोड़ा ज़्यादा सिंपल होता है, तो let's say if I'm writing a config for a refrigerator, maybe एक temperature knob level का एक config हो सकता है जिसकी वैल्यू might be between 0 to 5, sorry 1 to 5, right? And then there might be a defrost config जिसकी वैल्यू might be true or false, right? Defrost करना है तो उसको true कर दिया, otherwise false कर दिया, right? So if you think this is one example of a config, right? So usually some sort of JSON file या XML file या YAML file होगी जिसमें you will have configuration for a software, right? That is the concept of configuration of some software, right? So let me give this some name. This is the exact idea here. क्या हो रहा है मुझे स्पेलिंग नहीं आ रही, नींद आ रही है. Refrigerator config, okay? So this is one example, right? So similarly, every software will have its own config, right? So when I talk about web server, so the first step is to set up the web server, which is Nginx in our case, and we have to configure or we might have to tune its configuration for our use case, right? So the first step will be to install Nginx. इसके लिए कैसे करेंगे? You will have to use apt-get command. So in Ubuntu, in Fedora and all, you have yum. In Ubuntu, you have apt-get. So apt-get, you have to search how to install Nginx using apt-get. You'll get, I think it should be apt-get install Nginx only, but just Google for the correct command and install it. So now you see what I'm doing. I'm not spoon feeding you. I'm not giving you the exact steps. I'm not showing you how to go to click there, click here, because I want you to learn that process. कंपनी में जाओगे ऐसे ही करना पड़ेगा. मैनेजर बोलेगा कि हाँ ये करके आओ, काफका सेटअप कर लेना, ठीक है, और काफका सीख लेना. So अभी you have to go and learn the software. You have to go learn how to install the software. This is the real world training. दुनिया में ऐसे ही होता है, ठीक है? तो nobody will spoon feed you in company. सबको अपना काम करना है, कलीग को भी अपना काम करना है, तो मैनेजर के पास अपना काम है, ठीक है ना? तो और फिर यही होता है कि those people who are not up to the mark, they get on the top of the firing list, ठीक है? जो परफॉर्म नहीं कर पाते हैं, तो फिर जब भी फायरिंग का टाइम आता है, जब मैनेजर बोलेगा कि भाई मुझे दो लोग निकालने हैं तुम्हारी टीम से, नाम दो, तो he'll pick those kind of people only. So it's good if you learn all these skills. These are practical real world skills that you'll use in the company, ठीक है? So first step is to install Nginx, figure out how to install, what is the command, install it. Then also understand Nginx configuration, ठीक है? So Linux में there's one folder called /etc जहाँ पे हर सॉफ्टवेयर का configuration files होती हैं, ठीक है? तो Nginx की config files are within Nginx etc folder के अंदर, etc/Nginx folder. Go into this folder, go through all the files in this folder, learn about Nginx configuration. कि जैसे मैंने दिखाया ना, रेफ्रिजरेटर के कुछ फील्ड्स हैं जो उसकी कॉन्फ़िगरेशन है, तो इसी तरह Nginx जो HTTP सर्वर है उसके अंदर क्या क्या उसकी फंक्शनैलिटीज हैं, उसके क्या क्या वैल्यूज चेंज कर सकते हैं उसके कॉन्फ़िगरेशन में. यू हैव टू लर्न ऑल दैट. दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट स्किल टू लर्न ऑल दीज कॉन्फ़िगरेशंस, वेरी यूजफुल इन द लॉन्ग रन, ठीक है? तो go and learn all these, go and play around and learn all these things, ठीक है? So now your server will have some IP that you'll get, right? So abhi, if you want to access this web server from outside, you might have to set a web root. Web root क्या होता है? Web root is a folder जहाँ पे तुम बोलोगे कि pick the HTML files from this folder. ठीक है? So on your remote Linux computer, you will create, let's say, some folder my HTTP files. ठीक है? उस folder का जो भी root absolute path होगा, let's say you created some folder called my HTTP files under / which is a root folder, right, in Linux. So you have to point this. You have to tell the web server कि भैया HTTP files are pick up from this location, right? So that is what you have to do in the configuration, right? So you have to point to that configuration, and every time you make change any config in the configuration, you have to restart that software. So you change the configuration, update the config, and then you restart your Nginx. That way, Nginx will know that it has to pick files from this folder. Okay. The way web servers work, they will always search for a file called index.html within your web root. Okay, so create a file there called index.html, और उसके अंदर कुछ नहीं करना, just write hello world within that file. Just take file cat करके और vim करके you create a file called index.html in Linux, and इसको एक folder के अंदर डालो, उस folder को config में web root पे point कराओ, and then once it's all done, and you go to the browser and you give the IP of your VM, whatever is the IP, you should actually see hello world here. Because now what will be happening is the same journey. Your browser is sending HTTP request to your server, which you have just configured. वहाँ पे Nginx will be so basically HTTP port is 80. So यहाँ से जो HTTP request जाएगा वो तुम्हारे server के port 80 पे hit करेगा. Port 80 अगर open होगा security list में, तो it will reach your HTTP server. Nginx को request मिलेगा. Nginx will search for the web root के अंदर index.html file को, and it will serve that, right? Provided that you are hitting just the base path. Let's say this is I'm just giving an example. Let's say this is the IP. If you just hit the base root or the root folder, if I do like /courses, then it will actually go into the courses folder and वहाँ का index.html file search करेगा. If you are just doing this, so it will this is same as doing this /index.html, right? Because if you don't give anything, it means ki look for index.html file at that location, right? So / is like root folder. If you give some other path, then it will search for that folder within the web root. Okay. So at this point, once you complete this step, setup of the web server, you should be able to do this hello world experiment from your local machine. Okay, any questions till this point? Ajit, you have a question? Ajit, we can't hear you if you are speaking. Okay, yeah, I think we'll need 10-15 minutes more. I know we are approaching the end of our call, but yeah, just please be patient for 15 more minutes. Yeah, Ravish, any question?
Means I'll read about that ports, but if can you explain about the port 80, port 22? Means is there any difference? Means you said that port 80 will be opened in SSL or
So port का concept समझने के लिए you have to read about protocols. You have to go into computer networking. This is a concept of networking. Okay, so if you read about TCP protocol, right? So TCP protocol में I wanted to open Wikipedia. TCP में रहता है कि IP में रहता है? So there is a concept of basically अभी दो computer are talking to each other. IP, let's say server 1 and server 2. So channel तो same है ना? Now to let's say you are running 1000 processes on computer 1 and 1000 processes on computer 2, and each process has to talk to a corresponding process on different computer, right? Channel तो same, medium same है communication का. So the way you distribute these or partition the single medium between two between between two computers is using the concept of ports. ठीक है, तो
Okay.
same IP पे if you add a concept of port, then you are able to now run different processes. Like
Yeah.
and there's no limit on ports. Like you can have, I think 40,000 ports you can configure it. It's just a something in the network layer. Okay, so TCP जैसे
Mhm.
TCP का पैकेट देखोगे ना, तो इसमें एक पोर्ट का भी एक फील्ड होता है, ये लो, सॉरी, so there's a source port and destination port, right? तो पैकेट लेवल का concept है, तो this is a networking concept. तो इसके लिए मैं वो सारे protocols पढ़ने पड़ेंगे.
Okay. Mhm.
Got it?
Mhm.
तो इसीलिए on the same server now I'm able to use different protocols, different languages, right? HTTP language पे बात करनी है तो use port 80, SSH पे बात करनी है तो use port 22. BNC का अपना पोर्ट होता होगा, BNC का पोर्ट मुझे याद नहीं है, बट या अच्छा हाँ, this is important point. यहाँ पे I forgot to mention, if you are using BNC server का पोर्ट भी ओपन करना पड़ेगा सिक्योरिटी लिस्ट में, whatever is the port of that BNC server software, I don't remember. Okay, I think it should be configurable probably while in installation also it might ask कि किस port पे run करना है, and all these things are ऐसा कोई ये these are default ports, तुम change भी कर सकते हो, तुम चाहो तो HTTP server अपना 80 की बजाय 8080 पे भी चला सकते हो. All these are configurable through the configuration.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, any other question? Anyone till this point? Okay. So next step, is to install the application server, right? So यहाँ तक कर लिया, you have got your web server working, you've got the remote machine. The next step is to set up PHP FPM. Again, इसके लिए simple one command होगा, apt-get install PHP FPM या जो भी command होगा, just Google that and install it. Okay, तो PHP FPM install हो गया. That means now you can run PHP on your machine, PHP का software, PHP का code. Okay, so अब one thing that you have to configure. Hey Ravish, you have any question?
No.
You just mute yourself. Okay.
Okay.
So the next, so one thing is once you have installed PHP FPM, which is the application server. So other thing is to now connect the two, right? कि HTTP कोई request आ रही है which has a corresponding PHP code to be run, then that request should get sent to the PHP FPM, right? For PHP runtime execution. ठीक है, तो इसके लिए अब हमें we'll have to connect the two softwares, the web server and the application server. So for this, again you have to हर सॉफ्टवेयर का अपना config होता है, तो PHP FPM का config भी होगा. तो अगेन PHP FPM का config भी सेम फोल्डर में होगा, जहाँ पे मैंने बताया लिनक्स में सारे कॉन्फ़िगरेशन etc फोल्डर में होते हैं. तो etc/PHP FPM फोल्डर के अंदर PHP FPM का config होगा. Go and read about the different fields in that configuration and try to understand it. ठीक है, Google करो how to connect PHP FPM with Nginx. बहुत सारे blogs मिलेंगे. और this stack is like very popular stack. I told you ना, एक टाइम पे 70% of the world was using this stack. This is why intentionally I've chosen this, क्योंकि इस Google करोगे तो बहुत रिसोर्स मिलेगा इससे, बहुत सारे ब्लॉग्स मिलेंगे, हजारों ब्लॉग्स हैं जो केवल यही कॉन्फ़िगरेशन पे लिखे हुए हैं जो मैं बता रहा हूँ, राइट? सो इट वोंट बी अ प्रॉब्लम टू सर्च फॉर हेल्प. ठीक है, तो सर्च करो कैसे दोनों को वायर करते हैं टुगेदर. अगेन वायरिंग सारी कॉन्फ़िग के थ्रू होती है. कॉन्फ़िग में मुझे भी याद नहीं है, आई थिंक यू हैव टू गिव इसका पोर्ट या सॉकेट या समथिंग. तो जस्ट रीड अबाउट द कंसेप्ट कि दोनों को कनेक्ट कैसे करना है एंड कनेक्ट देम थ्रू द कॉन्फ़िगरेशन. ठीक है, एक बात हमेशा याद रखना, जो कॉमन मिस्टेक सब लोग करते हैं कि कॉन्फ़िग तो चेंज कर देते हैं, उसके बाद देखते हैं कि अरे ये चल क्यों नहीं रहा. तो कॉन्फ़िग चेंज करने के बाद जब तक वो सॉफ्टवेयर जिसका भी वो कॉन्फ़िग है उसको रीस्टार्ट नहीं करोगे ना, तब तक वो रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं होगा. तो लिनक्स में हर प्रोसेस को रीस्टार्ट करने के लिए एक कमांड होता है, सर्विस स्टॉप स्टार्ट करके भी कमांड यूज कर सकते हो, या सर्विस कमांड नहीं अवेलेबल है तो सिस्टम ctl स्टार्ट स्टॉप करके यूज कर सकते हो. ठीक है, तो अगेन गूगल ऑल दीज थिंग कि हाउ टू रीस्टार्ट Nginx, हाउ टू रीस्टार्ट PHP FPM on Ubuntu, ठीक है, तो कमांड्स मिल जाएंगे. तो you'll learn Linux also in the process अगर इतना already knowledge नहीं है Linux का, तो ठीक है. So this is why you have to do all these things. When you'll do, then only you'll learn. ठीक है. कोई भी कितना भी क्लास में पढ़ा दे, they can't teach you everything. Linux में जब तक काम करोगे नहीं, then you'll not, till then you'll not understand it. ठीक है. तो ये हो गया, दोनों वायर हो गया. तो कहते हैं हाउ टू टेस्ट कि ये वायरिंग सही हुई है एंड whether PHP is working end to end from the HTTP server now or not. तो उसको टेस्ट करने के लिए what you have to do is again simple thing. जहाँ पे index.html फाइल ऐड करी थी उसको उड़ा दो, उसकी जगह ऐड कर दो एक index.php फाइल. Okay, and in that index.php file just write this code. This is a PHP code, basically one line PHP code which will just print hello world from PHP. ठीक है. तो just copy this, cat it into a index.php file or a vim and into a index.php file and put that file in the same web root and remove the index.html file. So now when you hit your HTTP server, it should invoke this PHP file. और PHP file अगर पूरा का पूरा कोड ऐसे ही आ जा रहा है with this quotation and all, and basically it's not able to render PHP, which means कि HTTP server is not able to talk to PHP or server PHP FPM, and it's basically just printing out the text of the file. Basically render नहीं कर पा रहा है या interpret नहीं कर पा रहा है PHP कोड को, रन नहीं कर पा रहा है डायनेमिकली, then it means कि वो बाइंडिंग सही नहीं हुई है PHP FPM की एप्लीकेशन सर्वर की वेब सर्वर से. ठीक है. तो then do that, fix that. ठीक है. Once you fix that and it's working correctly, you should only see this output of the PHP code execution. ठीक है. तो PHP is a language like C only. Actual जो प्रोग्राम यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है PHP का वो केवल इतना है, इको, राइट. और उसको मैंने बस ये टैग्स हैं जिनके थ्रू PHP का कोड मैंने एम्बेड करा हुआ है HTTP के अंदर, राइट. सो दिस इज CGI, PHP CGI basically. ठीक है. तो till this point you will have your PHP FPM working, application server working, web server working. Very good. अब 2 steps are left. One, the next step is to install database. ठीक है. तो install database again very simple. Just use apt-get command, apt-get install MySQL server, and so MySQL server, once you install the MySQL server, to access it you will need a MySQL client. ठीक है. So again this client also you'll have to install. So install MySQL server and MySQL client, and then through the client, which is again a command only basically. So connect to the server and create your tables and all, database and tables. ठीक है. So if you don't know about database, you haven't worked on MySQL, there is a good opportunity to learn about that now. ठीक है. So first thing after installation is just that you should be able to just go into the database, log in into the database, and maybe if you run show tables show databases command, you should just see the list of default databases in MySQL client. ठीक है. इतना कर लिया तो at least you have a working MySQL installation. अब इसके बाद next step, final step is to install WordPress. WordPress install करने के लिए भी again it's very simple. So first you have to create a WordPress user, a database for WordPress and a user for WordPress. ठीक है. There are thousands of blogs on this. Google करो database कैसे बनाते हैं WordPress के लिए. There will be some commands. Create database command होगा, create user command होगा, grant command चलाने पड़ेंगे. So that way you will configure a user and a database for WordPress. ठीक है. उसके बाद फिर WordPress कैसे इंस्टॉल करते हैं. So for that WordPress की वेबसाइट पे जाओ, इंस्टॉल WordPress. तो how to install WordPress, ऑफिशियल वेबसाइट पे जाओ. So they will tell you to download a zip file on your server. तो wget से वो फाइल डाउनलोड करना, and you'll have to replace a file. Basically wp config फाइल होगी, उसको again मैंने बोला ना हर सॉफ्टवेयर की config फाइल होती है. तो WordPress की जो config फाइल है, you have to create a copy of that. उसके अंदर अपना सर्वर का नाम वगैरह देना होता है. You do that, and then when you hit that server again, web root को भी point कराना पड़ेगा इस snap folder पे. So all those steps will be there in the documentation or the blogs that you read. So do you use that, set up WordPress, configure your WP config, which is the WordPress configuration, and configure Nginx to point to this WordPress folder, जहाँ पे भी WordPress की फाइल जहाँ पे भी हम zip करिए वो zip, तो web root जाके नए इस पे point करा देना, and then whenever you hit you will go through the installation. वो website browser से ही installation हो जाता है WordPress का. So there is a workflow for that. Once you do these things, you will be able to install WordPress. So at the end of the day, you'll once you do these 3-4 steps, you will have a working sample stack that we want to use for the setup on your remote machine. ठीक है, इतना हो जाएगा तो now you will have a proper WordPress website running on some IP of remote IP of your machine. ठीक है, तो तुम लोगों ने पूरा वेब होस्टिंग सीख लिया, अभी एक पूरा सर्वर सेटअप करना सीख लिया और वेब होस्टिंग चलाना सीख लिया. तो अभी अपना ब्लॉग चलाना है तो यू कैन इवन लॉन्च योर ओन ब्लॉग, अपना रिज्यूम भी यू कैन होस्ट ऑन दैट वर्डप्रेस ब्लॉग. ओके, इतना हो जाए बस. फाइनली लास्ट स्टेप रहेगा कि एक वेबसाइट है loader.io. व्हाट दिस डज इज कि इट सेंड्स ट्रैफिक टू एनी अदर वेबसाइट, सो यू कैन लोड टेस्ट एनी वेबसाइट. तो इसको लॉग इन करना, इसमें बस अपना वेबसाइट का URL देना एंड पिक अ टेस्ट. जैसे 500 यूजर कॉन्करेंट यूजर का टेस्ट चला देना 1 मिनट के लिए, तो यू विल गेट सम एवरेज रिस्पॉन्स टाइम. वो रिस्पॉन्स टाइम नोट कर लेना. सो व्हाट आई वांट फ्रॉम यू एट द एंड ऑफ दिस असाइनमेंट इज 2 थिंग्स. ठीक है, तो फाइनल असाइनमेंट आज का ये है. तो फर्स्ट आई नीड अ IP of your website, जो भी which you set up. I want you to share that IP on the WordPress, WhatsApp channel, and a screenshot of loader test on your website. Okay, why we are doing this? Because by the end of the course you will see ki how much you improved. Okay, let's say ki abhi, I don't know, whatever time you will get, some milliseconds or some seconds for 500 users. When we'll do a horizontally scalable Kubernetes version of this whole stack, then you'll see ki kitne X your response improved. Okay, so we'll do that experiment. So that's why let's do this. Okay, any questions till this point? कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है, सबको सब कुछ समझ में आ गया? फिर कोई क्वेरी आनी नहीं चाहिए ग्रुप पे.
Rahul, how will I check if my WordPress is installed or not, like after configuration with Nginx?
Right. So once you hit the IP of your website, right? अगर ये सही से कॉन्फ़िगर करा था यहाँ पे, तो I told you ना, वेबसाइट जो इंस्टॉलेशन है WordPress का, that is browser driven only. So एक wizard रन होता है, that is browser driven. So even YouTube पे you'll get lot of help on all these topics. There will be hundreds of videos on YouTube की WordPress कैसे इंस्टॉल करना है on a computer, जहाँ पे ये सारी प्रोसेस वीडियो फॉर्म में भी देख सकते हो. ठीक है, तो I want you guys to use all those things.
Can you please explain that loader.io step, what we have to do in that?
हाँ, so once you have a IP of your website, right? Some IP जहाँ पे भी your VM is running and your WordPress website is running, let's say this is the one. So all that you have to do is loader.io. You have to sign up here and you have to just give your IP or URL and you have to run a test. So test इसमें किस तरह से होता है? Let me zoom on this. Okay, so it will ask कि कितने concurrent user भेजने हैं और कितने देर के लिए भेजने हैं. If you see this part, right? It says 250 clients over 1 minute. So it is running. So what it will do, loader.io, it will send traffic of 250 clients or 250 requests within 1 minute. And it will measure the response कि तुम्हारा सर्वर कितनी देर में respond कर रहा है, right? So it will do a latency test on your server. ये वही टेस्ट है जो I was explaining here, right? If you remember कि हमें ये हमेशा मेंटेन करके रखना है ना SLA अपनी वेबसाइट का कि वो रिस्पॉन्सिव रहे, राइट? अगर रिस्पॉन्सिव ही नहीं है तो कोई हमारे वेबसाइट पे आएगा ही नहीं, यूज ही नहीं करेगा, राइट? कोई हमारा वेब ऐप यूज ही नहीं करेगा. सो होल पॉइंट ऑफ this course or running a successful business is to have a fast website, right?
Yeah. So we have to understand these graphs and all, like how these are.
These are all intuitive. Graphs की जरूरत नहीं है. All that you need is these numbers. बस एक ये नंबर चाहिए. Average response time क्या था? बस ये एक नंबर चाहिए होगा. ठीक है.
So we will improve
What I
this.
want, what I want is to share the screenshot of this loader.io test for your website. ठीक है. तो ऐसे ही screenshot होगा, similar, बिल्कुल ऐसे ही आएगा. Share that screenshot, share that URL. Okay. That's what I want as part of this assignment. So next deadline is assignment की वैसे तो next class के पहले तक है. So you guys have full 1 week time. कल weekend भी है तो कल सुबह से ही लग जाना. लेकिन try to do it by by Tuesday. ठीक है. Target करो कि Tuesday तक हो जाए. So that if you are stuck or blocked on something, you can get your doubts answered on Tuesday class.
Okay.
Okay. ठीक है. Any more questions, anyone? तो रीडिंग असाइनमेंट बता देता हूँ. सबसे पहले विकिपीडिया के पेज पढ़ लेना प्रोटोकॉल्स पे. आज हम लोगों ने क्या क्या टॉपिक्स देखे. तो HTTP सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है. जितना ज़्यादा पढ़ सको HTTP के बारे में उतना अच्छा है. TCP के बारे में पढ़ लेना. UDP के बारे में पढ़ लेना. एटलीस्ट इतना तो पढ़ ही लेना. और मन करे तो OSI स्टैक के बारे में पूरा पढ़ लेना. पूरा नेटवर्किंग का बेसिक्स पढ़ लेना. It will be very handy. ठीक है. और पढ़ने का मन करे तो you can also read about virtualization. Okay. And next thing is learn configs of Nginx, PHP, SPM. WordPress. ठीक है. तो ETC फोल्डर के अंदर जो भी इनकी config files होंगी, go through all the files. Google around those configs. Usually the best source to learn about configs is the official documentation. जैसे फ्रिज का मैनुअल है तो फ्रिज के पैनल के बारे में समझना है तो best is to go through the official manual, right? फ्रिज या वॉशिंग मशीन का सेम कहानी यहाँ पे भी है. जो ऑफिशियल डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होता है that is the best source. तो Nginx के ऑफिशियल डॉक्यूमेंटेशन में if you Google for some flag or some parameter that you see in the config, there will be very detailed documentation. That is the best source always for learning all these things. और मन करे तो MySQL का भी सीख लेना. वो थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स होगा क्योंकि MySQL थोड़ा कॉम्प्लेक्स सॉफ्टवेयर है, बट इट्स अ गुड स्टार्ट. एटलीस्ट बेसिक चीजें ट्राई टू स्टार्ट लर्निंग. ओके. ठीक है. Any other questions, anyone? Yeah, Munib, I'll share the notes on. So what I'll do is I'll create a Dropbox folder. Okay. वहाँ पे कोर्स का रिकॉर्डिंग भी रहेगा और आज की क्लास का एंड ये नोट्स भी रहेंगे. ठीक है. I'll add that folder in the description of the group. थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा because sorry Miru, yeah, I'll avoid using Hindi. So yeah, what I'm saying is that I'll upload the recording for this class as well as the notes in a Dropbox folder, and I'll attach that the Dropbox folder in the group description. So it will take some time because uploading the recording and it will take an hour or two because we render okay recording server and it takes some time. So yeah, just by tomorrow morning you will have all these things. Okay. These notes though I'll share immediately. Recording might take a couple of hours. Okay. Any other question? Anyone?
What's the timing for doubt sessions during night time?
Yeah, it will be 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. every Tuesday.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, everything is in the group description.
Is there a class tomorrow?
No.
And day after? No. Okay.
So from tomorrow, actually, I'm starting another course. That course is not for CS folks. Yeah, if you want to, refer anybody in your family who is from BA, BSc, any that kind of background, and is computer studies and struggling for job. So this is a very unique course. It's like mini computer science BTech. All the foundation things I teach there, like all these HTTP concepts, OSI layer, all these things are covered here, right? So operating system basics, computers basics, programming basics, right? And web programming basics. Then I go into and during all these things, we'll also go into the creative things like Photoshop and all, or graphic design will learn, UI UX you'll learn, right? And then you'll also learn about the management roles in computer science, like Scrum Master role or project management, product management. So all those things also you learn. So the idea of this course is that anybody who wants to enter into IT, once he does this course, it's like mini BTech. He understands ki technical roles kya hai, what are the non-technical roles, what are the creative roles, and then he can choose by the end of the class, this course, 3 months ka course hai, that which roles he is best suited for and which roles he can target. Okay. So yeah, if you have anybody in your family, friend circle who you feel might be struggling with this career, suggest this course to them. This is starting from tomorrow. I don't admit usually CS students in this because this is very basic. You all have already gone through all this stuff in your BTech. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone. Then I'll stop here. I'll stop sharing and I'll stop recording as well.